So the other day I was talking on the phone to one of my friends who is an attendee at another Episcopal church in the diocese, and I said something to her about Joseph and Joseph's brothers, and she said, "Why are you talking about Joseph?" And I said, "Well, we had the Joseph reading this week," and she goes, We did not have the reading on Joseph." And I said, "Oh, you must be on track 2.
Yeah.
And I said, "We're on track 1. And she said, "Deb, why do you have to be different?" So I said, "We alternate. We do track 1 one year and track 2 the next." And she goes, "I don't think I ever hear track 1. I don't think I ever go to a church that has track 1. And I said, "That's because the preachers don't like to preach track 1. Because it has all the hard stuff. So they always are taking the option of track 2. Your parish administrator last year when we were doing this, she said, "Oh, well, St. Clement's is on track 2. I said, "Wasn't St. Clement's on track 2 last year?" She goes, "I think so." I said, "It's your rector who likes to switch them out depending on what the readings are." So then she said to me this year, "You called him out, so now he's sticking with the track." So track 1 is hard. Remember, track 1 takes us through the Hebrew scriptures, through the prophets, and through the patriarchs, who are problematic figures in some ways, right? So last week we left off with Joseph, and Joseph is famous for
His amazing Technicolor dream.
his amazing Technicolor dream coat, right?
That's Mary's husband, Joseph. We're talking that guy.
No.
No.
Other Joseph.
These are the patriarchs. So this is Abraham's great-grandson. So we went Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. Okay. And Joseph is the 11th of 12 children. He's the baby, and he's favored by his father. Now, he's favored by his father because he is gifted, because his father senses that he is gifted. Not just because he's the baby, although that's quite possible too. And his father gives him this coat because it represents his belief in Joseph's gift. But the brothers, of course, don't like this, right? Why does he get a coat? I didn't get a coat like that. And, the whole thing. This is a beautiful thing about Scripture. If you ever have suffered from sibling rivalry, you know that this goes way back to the beginning, right? What's the first murder? Cain and Abel, brother on brother, right? The very first murder. Okay, so today we're continuing the story of Joseph. When last we left him, he had been sold into slavery by his older brothers. Now, they were going to kill him for his coat, but they decided that was not a good idea. That was really, probably beyond the pale. And then just then, this caravan showed up, and they're like, "Look, it's the slave train. Let's sell him into slavery. That's better." And that is, in fact, what they did. Then they went home and lied to their father and said, "We don't know what happened to Joseph. Did he wander off?" And his father was brokenhearted because this was his favorite kid. So they don't know, the family is here, we don't know what's happened to Joseph. Well, now we start finding out what happened to Joseph. Joseph ended up being sold into slavery, and we miss a hunk of the story today. He gets sold into slavery into Egypt. He does something, he's working as a table server, does something, I can't remember even what he does, but he ends up in jail. And while he's in jail, there are 2 other household members that end up in jail. And they both have dreams. And one of the dreams, Joseph says, "Oh, this is not good. You're going to lose your head." And that's what happens. The guy loses his head. So then the other guy says, "Please don't tell me that that's what my dream means." And he says, "No, actually, your dream means that you're going to get restored to your place and better." And that, in fact, is what happens to him. So then the Pharaoh has a dream, and he has this repeated, and no one can tell him what this dream means. So the guy who was restored says, "Oh, get Joseph. He told me my dream and the other guy's dream, and he was right." So they bring Joseph to the Pharaoh, and Joseph says there's going to be 7 years of plenty, and then there's going to be a famine. So you better stock up. And that, in fact, is what Pharaoh does. He starts stocking up. He believes Joseph. Well, so now we're at this point of the story where now we're in the famine. The famine has happened, and everybody who is not in Egypt, all the countries around, are starving. And the Pharaoh has taken to Joseph so much that Joseph is now in charge of welcoming the people who come in and deciding how much, or if any, food they will get. Well, guess who shows up? His brothers, right? Because they're all starving, right, in another country. And then they see this grand figure in robes and whatever else he's wearing show up. And he stands before them, and they're just like, please give me some food. And he says, don't you recognize me? I'm your brother. Well, that doesn't make them feel too much better, right? They're like, oh, that brother. But Joseph forgives them. Why?
Because he said it was God's plan.
That's right.
I've never read that before today.
Yeah.
Caught on to that.
And you caught on to that today, right? We've all heard the story, but it's not just that he forgives them, but why he forgives them. He says, if you hadn't sold me into slavery, I wouldn't have ended up in Egypt. And if I didn't end up in Egypt, I wouldn't have been able to interpret Pharaoh's dream. And not only would I'm, of course, incidentally, I'm rich, but we saved all the people of Egypt. And if I hadn't been here, they would have died too.
And it also says, like, he saved the line of Israel.
Yes.
The line of Benjamin. You know what I mean?
Yes. Because in the meantime, he now has a younger brother.
Joseph.
So up until then, the other reason his father liked him best is he's the only child of Rachel, who, remember the story of Rachel and Leah. Remember, Jacob got tricked into marrying Rachel and Leah, and then he had a bunch of children with Leah, and he only has the one child with Rachel, who is Joseph. So that's the other reason he's a favorite, because he's from the wife that he loves. Whereas whereas Leah has nice eyes. I hate that. That really bothers me. And so then meantime, Rachel has had another child, Benjamin. So now Joseph has a younger sibling, and they see one another, and they embrace and they cry, because they are the full siblings, thus saving the line of specifically Benjamin. Good. Okay, so there's the happy ending that we've been waiting for in one of these stories for a while. Okay.
Why couldn't the brothers answer if the father was still alive?
They did, but they eventually did. But he's like, is my father still alive? And they're like, you're Joseph, our, right? They're just knocked out by this whole thing. Yeah, but they do eventually. And then they're all reunited, and they bring the family to Egypt, so the whole family doesn't starve. They bring everybody to Egypt, and everybody goes to Egypt, right? And so now we have this connection between the line of Jesus and Egypt in a benevolent way, right? Okay, there we go to the psalm. This psalm is very short. How does this psalm make you feel?
Good.
Yeah, right? It's a nice one. It's a nice short one. How wonderful it is to live in harmony. And it's like oil in your beard, which I can't comment on. Maybe Paul can.
We got oil, we got a beard.
Yeah. It's like nice oil in your beard. It's like being anointed, right? How nice that is. How good does that feel, right? I went to a thing at another church yesterday, and we get into all these politics, especially as we're coming up on convention, and there's constantly these meetings, and then you put everybody in a room for one of these celebrations, and everybody's like, oh, look, we're the church. Isn't it nice to be the church? Look, there's a bishop. We like the bishop. And it's one of those moments where you get this break where you've been worrying about things. Yeah. All right, so then we get to the second reading, and this is, we've been really struggling because Paul's letters are complicated, and his letters to the Romans, remember, this is the last set of letters he writes, are to the Romans. And he's right up in the face of the empire now. So it's like if he were here and he had been traveling and he'd sort of started in Indiana, and everybody's like, well, he's a little weird, but he's not that offensive. And then he's headed toward the Capitol. And now he's up on the Capitol steps, right up in their face, right? So he's getting closer to being in danger. And he says, he's talking about this idea of, he's trying to straighten out people on the idea of the Jews and the Christians. Who are the Jews? Who are the Christians? This is very confusing because they've been told the Jews are God's chosen people. And now here's a Jew saying, well, now we've got the Christians, we've got the Jesus followers, and Jesus is the Son of God, so they've really got the number. Now, this is going to continue for thousands of years, and it's going to cause war and death, and in fact, in our time, is causing war and death, right? This idea, it's us, either the Jews are chosen or the Christians are chosen. And here's Paul, right off the top, trying to straighten it out. He says,
I am of the tribe of Benjamin.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I am of the tribe, I am a Jew.
Would you?
I'm a Jew, right? And I am evangelizing for Jesus the Christ. And there is no contradiction there, right? Now, he's trying to make it simple. Is it simple? Does it seem simple when you read it? Yeah, that's part of the problem, right? We just have trouble simplifying Paul. But it's that simple, really. It's that simple. Jesus, and we hear it in today's gospel, which is what we get next. Today's gospel is one of my favorites because I always say there's only one person that ever wins an argument with Jesus in the Bible, and it's a woman. And she doesn't even have a name. She's not important enough to get a name, right? But she's the only one that wins an argument because she says, she knows he's healing people, he's this famous prophet, and she says, help me. And he's like, were you talking to me, right? And he's very nasty in this. Like, he's very un-Jesus-like. So one wonders what that's about. Jesus was not above, doing things for effect. He was a little bit of a showman. So I suspect that that's what this is. This is a little show that he's doing. Oh, look, I don't talk to that person. And his disciples are not even vaguely appalled by this, right? They're all like, can you just shut her up, though? Because she's bugging us, right? That's their whole empathetic response. He's like, I'm not going to heal her. And they're like, good, don't heal her, but can you shut her up? And so it seems like he's teaching somebody a lesson. So he probably, I suspect, is going to heal her the whole time. We don't have that text, but the text we do have is her saying very humbly, he says, listen, we don't give the food meant for the people to the dogs. Right? Very mean kind of calling her a dog. And she very calmly, without getting mad, says, okay, I'm a dog, but you know what? Even dogs get the scraps under the table. Very humble, still faithful, still believing, not taking offense. And Jesus is like, you win. I'm going to heal that person. So there's a lesson in persistence, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lesson in what else? Persistence and
Forgiveness.
faith. That's right. What else?
Forgiveness.
Who's forgiven whom?
Well, I know we hear when Joseph forgives his brothers and all that stuff. That's
Oh,
part
in
of
the earlier ones. You're jumping ahead to the synthesis. But yes, right?
That's
And if Jesus needs to be forgiven, she does not, at least does not take offense, right, at what he says. She does not immediately go, okay, I see what you're worth, Mr. Prophet guy, and storm off, which is what many of us would do, right? We'd be like, this guy you got as your prophet is not nice.
I'm kind of like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm a little offended.
Yeah. Yeah, he's really nasty. He's not even just, he's like, was I talking to you? Talk to the hand, right? And then when she insists on talking to him, he's like, what do you want, dog? Oof, oof, really.
But she ignored him.
Yeah, well,
She
Well,
kind of.
she's ignoring his bad behavior, not even bothering to acknowledge it, and keeps on doing what she's doing. So to me, she's more powerful, showing him that she's above him.
well, I don't want to go that far because she does acknowledge him because she says, yes, Lord, because he says, why should I give the crumbs to a dog? And she said, yes, Lord, but even the dogs get the crumbs.
But she's not taking offense. She's being strong.
She is being strong and she's being faithful and she's believing in him. And he's making it hard, right? He's making it hard on her, but she's solid. She stays solid. And so if we put all these lessons together, Norley's already kind of jumped there, right? What do we have? What do we have today?
To me, it's a lot of forgiving.
There's a lot of forgiving. Yeah.
First, yeah.
Which makes you feel good afterwards.
That's right. And that, in fact, you're going to get to the children's sermon, because when we do the children's sermon, we're going to talk about how it makes you feel when you forgive someone. And we're going to say, oh, that feels good. And then we're going to say, who wants to try that? So as we will end the children's sermon, how does it feel when you forgive someone? It feels good. So would we all like to try that? Do you think we can try that? This is what I always say to the children. Do you think we could try that? And then I say, do we agree?
So while mentally we know, I know that it's still,
Well, it's really hard, right?
Yeah.
But think of like the protesters, and and it's, nowadays, you don't have to like even get up in somebody's face to get violence acted upon you, right? I mean, I was at the protest at the Coast Guard base when the ice truck ran over the guy's foot. I was standing next to the guy, and we're screaming, back up, because the truck is on this guy's foot. Like, I'm standing there and the truck is and I'm like yelling, back up, you're on his foot. And you don't even think about it, right? You just say, back up. And that was about a week before the woman got killed, was shot for not moving the car fast enough. It did not occur to me at any moment that could happen, right? I was like, I'm yelling at the driver because he's on the guy's foot. So this thing where this driver, and I'm like, when I intervene, it's like, you need to back up, not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's not good for you to be on this. Like, you don't really want to have driven. I don't believe the driver drove on this guy's foot on purpose.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it's not that, you got to be skillful to actually drive on somebody's foot on purpose, right? But everybody's scared and energized in these situations. And what's the beautiful thing about the woman is she's not. She's very, this is this guy, I want him to heal this person.
Right.
He's kind of kicking me around, but I still know what I want, right? I want to be him to heal, and I will stay with that. And I think in times when there's a lot of anxiety, you have to stay solid on what you're about. And if we're about peace and justice and love and being in the room when everybody's friends, like in the psalm, then the key to that is staying focused, as they said in the civil rights movement, having your eyes on the prize, right?
Yeah.
And what's the prize? Not money, not glory, right? Not power. The prize is to believe, right? That's all she did, was to believe and to be faithful and to be forgiving. So can we try that?
Amen.
Yeah, and then what do we say when we all agree?
Yeah.
Amen.
Yes, we can try that.